I have a lot of issues with you basketball people, with your takes on youth and youth being served and deciding to punt entire seasons away in the name of data accumulation. And you, DeMichael Cole, it pains me to say that by the end of this episode, I will give you the Godfather kiss because you broke my heart, DeMichael. You broke my heart because in one of your recent articles at the Commercial Appeal, you invoked "he who shall not be named."
He who shall not be named.
That and more next here on this Friday edition, this Friday Festivus edition of Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another installment of Locked On Grizzlies. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax, joined by DeMichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He is the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. I am a Bluff City media writer, leader of written content over at Grizzly Bear Blues, Bluff City Media, whatever we're called, bluffcitymedia.co/join. Sign up using the promo code Mullinax. Tons of great content over at Bluff City Media. And of course, you should already be subscribing to the Commercial Appeal if you want to be smart about the Grizzlies. Between DeMichael, myself, and Locked On Grizzlies, we've got a lot of experience covering the team. And you've come to the right place, despite how crazy I sounded in the opening part of the show there, for good Grizzlies content. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Again, we're on YouTube. You can like and comment there. You can also rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast each and every day. Hopefully, you're an everydayer for Locked On Grizzlies and you're checking us out daily. We've come to the end of the week. We teased on our Thursday episode, DeMichael, that this was going to be a Festivus-style episode. For those that are not familiar with Seinfeld, George's father creates a holiday called Festivus in which he complains, and there's wrestling. We're not going to get that far down the road, but he talks about having grievances. It's the airing of grievances, and I thought this would be a good Festivus Friday because I have some grievances watching the NBA playoffs, and it starts with De'Anthony Melton. Now, my anger, and anger is a strong word, my frustration has been tempered some since the season ended for two reasons. One, I accepted their decision to not be more aggressive this past offseason. So I am complicit by my silence. So I have to acknowledge that. I was angry at first. If you remember correctly, I called it a heat check for this front office. And then I gave them the benefit of the doubt because they were the 2 seed again. So I can't be but so angry. And I also want to stress that, as we talked about on our recent episode of Locked On Grizzlies, I like David Roddy. And I like Jake LaRavia. You like Jake LaRavia more than I do, and I like David Roddy more than you do, it sounds like. But I think that we both are on the same page, that both of those guys could be NBA rotation players, right? So prefacing all of this with that, the first thing I'm airing a grievance about is the trade of De'Anthony Melton, as he helps the Philadelphia 76ers make a push for the Eastern Conference Finals against a lot of people's favorites for the NBA Finals out of the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics. He has been a vital component of that Philadelphia team. He had a terrific season this past season, shot almost 40% from three, 39% from three to be exact, shot 42.5% from the field, almost 80% from the free throw line. He had roughly the same amount of assists that he had in Memphis, more steals than he had in Memphis. He was a little more aggressive in terms of fouls, but he played a lot more minutes as well. He averaged almost 28 minutes a game, essentially was the sixth man for the Philadelphia 76ers, and he started 58 games for Philly, the most of his career. So for Danny Green and a first-round pick that eventually became David Roddy, the Memphis Grizzlies select or move on from De'Anthony Melton. And while there were reasons they move on from him, especially his postseason performance, DeMichael, I can't help but feel pain when I watch Melton be so successful for the 76ers in the playoffs, one of the main reasons that Memphis supposedly, at least according to fans, were okay with moving on from him.
I'm going to take it a step further than you.
Ooh, so you are angry.
I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm not angry.
Yeah, you rarely get angry.
It's hard to make me angry. But I'll say this. With the decision, it boils down to this for me. At the end of the day, you're going to have the people out there who say, if you don't trade De'Anthony Melton, you don't get Luke Kennard. Here's where I'm going to take it a step further because I know you love Luke Kennard.
I do love.
What if I say so what? What if I say so what? Because here's the thing: Luke Kennard, one of the greatest shooters in the NBA. But you know why Luke Kennard was available? Not just when he got traded to the Clippers. He also got traded from the Pistons as well. He's been traded multiple times. That means multiple franchises said, we can do without. I love what Luke Kennard brings to the Grizzlies. Not taken away from that at all. But we can't be blind to the fact there was a reason he was traded. Not once, not twice. And let's be honest, we saw it in the postseason. When the Lakers got physical and said he is a priority, we're not going to let him get open. We're not going to let him, make 6-7 3-pointers in a half and things like that like he did against regular season defenses. All of that was gone. All of that was gone. He had the one game, I think he shot 3 or 4 on 3-pointers. But even then, you saw it like I saw it. It felt like he was having to work so hard to get off 3-point looks. A couple of his makes were just on play breakdowns. The balls trickles off the rim. Luke Kennard's open in the corner while some players were trying to get back on defense. Some players were scrambling all over the place, and boom, he gets an open 3-pointer. That's how he made a couple of them. So my point is, if you're watching De'Anthony Melton in the playoffs right now, you're not subbing him off the court with his plus shooting, by the way. And I know it was, the playoffs. My thing to that is there wasn't a big enough sample size. You took a postseason series, against the Jazz, and then a couple postseason series, one series in which he barely played. I forget. You may remind me. I think it was the second series. Was it the Golden State series or was it the Timberwolves? But one of those series. One of the series, he was pretty much out of the rotation. So you're basically talking about the sample size of 2 playoff series as, this guy can't be a playoff performer. That's not big enough. I can give you 2 playoff series where Kobe Bryant didn't look like a playoff performer, or where players like Paul George, who are superstars or up and down in the postseason, didn't look like playoff performers. My point is, when you factor in all of that, kind of makes you wonder. De'Anthony Melton, his plus defense, it all boils down to this. We talk about how mediocre the half-court offense was and all of that, right? It's kind of been a big talking point. De'Anthony Melton was second in the NBA this season in deflections per game. You know what gets the transition offense going even more? Deflections, turnovers, steals. He was the best on the Grizzlies when he was here doing that. And he was great for the Sixers. He was second, and De'Aaron Fox led the NBA, but he also was second in per 36 minutes because he didn't play anywhere near as many minutes as De'Aaron Fox. But I think Kessler Edwards was number 1 by a long shot, but he played way more minutes than Kessler Edwards. So basically, if you put it, I'm sure there's a number of minutes you can put it at and say De'Anthony Melton was the best at creating deflections in the NBA this past season. My point is, I think if you gave him more time, the sample size would have showed that he can shoot the basketball in the playoffs like he's done in spurts for the Sixers during this playoff run. And the defense was a plus, which we've seen at times Luke Kennard playing less than 20 minutes in playoff games because Taylor Jenkins was concerned about the defense.
I support that opinion completely. So that's good.
Luke's your guy.
Luke is my guy. But as I said at the time, the trade for Luke wouldn't have been necessary if they had never traded De'Anthony Melton. Right? It wouldn't have had to happen because they would have had Melton on the team. By the way, Melton is on an $8 million partial guarantee for next season. So he's making less money than Luke Kennard by over $4 million. There's a lot of reasons to have a gripe with this. I would say I've been a big supporter of Zach Kleiman, the Grizzlies GM. I think he is one of the best executives in the NBA. He missed. He missed. This was a miss. De'Anthony Melton should have still been on the Memphis Grizzlies. And yeah, that means Luke Kennard never arrives more than likely. But that means that they have a guy in Melton who can play alongside Ja Morant despite his size. He has the arm length, the wingspan. He has the ability to defend. Put him on a team with this year's Jaren Jackson Jr. and this year's Dylan Brooks.
Oh,
Those are 3+, and in the case of Jaren, obviously, plus defenders on the floor next to Santi Aldama and Ja Morant, and their defensive issues are not as big of a concern.
Would have been fun to see.
It would have been a lot of fun to see, and it masks some of the inefficiencies of Ja and Santi on that end of the floor. So that's my first grievance, okay? First grievance. And again, in fairness to Kleiman, did we really need to triple down on youth? No, you didn't have to. You could have taken either LaRavia or Roddy, whichever one you preferred. Roddy was on a lot of people's second round list. Like, there's a decent chance Roddy would have been there in the second round. They might have had intel that suggests he wouldn't have been, maybe like Santi Aldama the year prior. But still, there could have been a chance for you to not have had to make the Luke Kennard trade. You could have already had that guy. That's grievance number one. And I'm so glad to hear you say, DeMichael, that if somebody moves around teams multiple times in a short amount of time,
oh boy,
it probably means that there's something wrong with them, because that's going to come back up here later on in the show. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. But before we get to that part of our program, we are going to next here on Locked On Grizzlies talk about the other big-time veteran presence that left the Grizzlies in free agency. It wasn't a trade. We'll talk Kyle Anderson next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors understands the importance of team and the importance of building a strong team for a championship run, because you got to make sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part has to fit just right. The next time you need parts and accessories, you need to head to eBay Motors. Using their guaranteed fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time. Add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or you get your money back. Just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win with the right parts when they're guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on emotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Grievance number 2 on this Festivus Friday. Next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I have a lot of issues basketball-wise, and you people are going to hear about them. I'm joined, of course, by DeMichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. I am Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media. We talked about De'Anthony Melton and how he should still be a Grizzly. I think I kind of surprised DeMichael when I said, yeah, I know Luke Kennard wouldn't be here, but he wouldn't need to be here because not DeMichael Cole. Thankfully, DeMichael Cole's still here. De'Anthony Melton would still be here. And maybe that's a bit surprising to folks, but Melton was a pretty successful player. Again, it was a heat check for the front office. That's one that was a pretty clear swing and a miss.
Yeah.
One that was another swing and a miss, but I'm not as angry about it on this Festivus Friday, is Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson, a veteran presence that certainly could have been useful during some of the difficult times of this past Grizzlies campaign. My thing with Kyle Anderson moving on, while he would have been helpful, Kyle does so much well in the game of basketball that doesn't even involve scoring the basketball. Oh, by the way, on low volume, he shot the 3 ball really well this past season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that while Memphis missed Kyle, and I think he would have been helpful, especially when Adams and Clark went out. In fairness to the Grizzlies front office, you can't operate in that realm where you expect 2 guys who you gave summer extensions to not play a vast majority of the season, or a large chunk of the season is probably the more fair way to say that. Because Kyle Anderson, and I said it last year, and he played a lot of this for Minnesota, he's a big at this stage of his career. He's not a wing. He's a 4. He's a 5. He's 6'9". He's long. He can, again, another plus defender. He's a guy kind of like a Boris Diaw, Draymond Green. He's that kind of player. Does a lot of things well, handles the ball well, can facilitate offense, but he's not a perimeter player. So when you have Xavier Tillman, you choose Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, obviously Jaren Jackson Jr., you have Santi Aldama. there weren't really going to be minutes for Kyle. So while I missed Kyle and his veteran presence, especially once the injuries hit, I don't think it's as egregious as Melton, because the Grizzlies clearly needed a good wing player, and Melton would have been that. That would not have been Anderson because of what he is at this stage of his career.
I'm starting to notice this thing where we both will kind of come to the same conclusion, but our
Just
routes,
in different ways.
Yeah. Our routes to getting there are a little bit different. I have the same conclusion where, yes, they could have used him, but it's not. I don't consider it a miss, but a different reason. My reason is more about Santi Aldama. You drafted him in the first round a couple years ago. He had to play at some point.
It's true. Or you trade him. One of the two.
Yeah, but in baseball, we talk about blocking prospects, right? You know, you have guys up who are decent players, but you have this nice young prospect where it's like, hey, give him the reps, give him the opportunity to play, or you can keep a player who he's good, but he's no star, and you save money, right? In the Grizzlies case, you had Kyle Anderson, who is, the defense, for one, if you have Kyle Anderson, you're probably competing for the 1 seed, because there were a few games early in the season that Santi Aldama's defense, against the Jazz in particular, kind of hurt the Grizzlies. And
Kyle fills in a lot better defensively for Jaren than Santi does.
Yeah,
for sure.
Kyle fills in a lot better than a lot of guys defensively. That is one of the reasons why he was able to thrive this season in Minnesota. But my point here is the fact that Santi played well this season, and Santi's going to continue to progress. We know his strengths and his weaknesses much more now. I think he shot, I was really just looking at his numbers, through his career. It just kind of felt like there was going to be some regression that came with his 3-point shot, but it really never happened. And that's a salute to him. Even in the postseason, I know people don't want to talk about those blowout losses like that, but Santi was the one guy. He was shooting the ball pretty decent when given the opportunity. Now, he didn't play well in the first round either, pretty much like none of those guys did. But Santi, we saw the potential this season. It is why I don't think he should be traded right now. I think he should. You have something there. Let him get stronger. Let him continue to physically grow. And at the end of the day, he has the rawness to his game, where I talk about he can shoot, he can dribble. I love his playmaking, the behind the back passes, the no look, and he has all that craftiness that a lot of those European playmakers come to the NBA with, right? It's kind of a cool thing to see the big man, feature some of those Ricky Rubio and traits that we've seen, right? But think about it is I'm not super, as the Melton one, it's like, okay, that's more of a miss because you end up giving a large chunk of those minutes to John Conchar. Whereas in this case, Santi Aldama early part of the season was averaging double figures for a healthy part of the season. And even when Jaren came back, he had to find his way, and eventually he did. He filled in at the 5 a little bit, and he's going to grow into that role. But I'm with you on that one. I think that Santi basically is the reason for me. He kind of played himself into earning that spot.
I think that your baseball comparison is apt. He definitely was blocked. Kyle would have blocked Santi.
Yep.
And I also agree. Tyus Jones, I think you and I both agree. And again, we have plenty of time in the offseason to maybe even do a ranking of this. Tyus is their number one asset in terms of players, right? That are realistically going to be traded. They're not going to trade Ja. They're not going to trade Jaren. Bane for Jaylen Brown, if you really want to get angry on the internet, maybe you can make a trade that makes sense out of that. But why would Boston do that with a top 10 player in the NBA? Right, maybe. It would have to be Bane and 4 first-round picks. And at what point does Memphis say, no, thank you, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully immediately, because that's a lot. So my point is, outside of those three, who is the best tradable player? And it's probably Tyus Jones. I think that's a fair thing to say at this stage. There are going to be teams that value him as a starting point guard.
For sure.
I think number 2, Santi Aldama, right? Luke Kennard has an elite NBA skill, but he has flaws, to your point.
Are you saying as a trade piece?
Yes. Like, I'm saying that if you were offering Tyus Jones and Santi Aldama, that would be more attractive to me as an opposing GM than Tyus Jones and Jake LaRavia.
I agree, but as the
Tyus
Grizzlies,
Jones and David Roddy. Now, the Grizzlies may not want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you got Brandon Clark on the shelf right now.
Right.
We still don't know a Steven Adams update, so that's.
I'm agreeing with you.
I know.
I'm just saying that Tyus Jones, Santi Aldama, and a first
that can get you,
or Tyus Jones, Jake LaRavia, and 2 firsts is the point I'm trying to make. There is more value with Santi at this stage.
For sure. You can possibly get a really, really good player with that.
Correct. Package. So I agree that I don't know that I would do that.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have to replace both a point guard and a third big, and you only have one MLE, right? So we'll talk more about that as the season goes on. So that's our second grievance today. Okay, my second grievance was with Kyle Anderson, but I'm not even really that mad about that one for the reasons that we outlined. My third grievance, is with DeMichael Cole. Okay, my third grievance is with my dear friend and partner DeMichael Cole, and I'll explain why next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts here on Locked On Grizzlies, joined by DeMichael Cole, the commercial appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at DeMichaelC. If you don't already do so, follow me on Twitter at Joe Mullinax. And DeMichael, I read everything you put out. I genuinely do. I think you're an excellent writer. I enjoy your work. You're one of the reasons I still subscribe to the commercial appeal. And that was true before I joined Locked On Grizzlies. And it took me a day. It took me a day to get to your free agency piece. Mm-hmm. And I want to stress that I thoroughly enjoyed some of your ideas. I think Bruce Brown, we talk about loving De'Anthony Melton. Yeah. Hello, De'Anthony Melton, Spider-Man meme pointing guy, Bruce Brown, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's similarities there.
I can see
Bruce
that.
Brown can play the freaking 4 because of how he's built, which I kind of like. He's got PJ Tucker and De'Anthony Melton combined.
He's a baller.
I like Bruce Brown. I think that's a good choice. I liked the Harrison Barnes idea. You wrote about how there's defensive concerns there. You would still need to try to find a way to replace that with Dillon gone. But offensively, veteran presence, Harrison Barnes, absolutely. You had other good ideas, and then I come across the worst idea you've ever had. And it was a suggestion. To bring back Jay Crowder to the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, anybody who has followed my work over the last few years,
there's some history here. There's some history.
My disdain. And I want to stress, I don't know Jay Crowder from Adam. He could be a perfectly kind person. Clearly, John Morant and the other Grizzlies respect him. So, NBA vet, people like him, whatever. This is not a personal thing. Mm-hmm. This is the fact that I had to watch this man take so many shots from John Morant and Jackson Jordan pieces in that first year of the rebuild. And people will say, but it's important to have a guy that's willing to take those shots. If other players aren't, if they take the shot, right? The ones that actually have to do the shooting. And that was not the case because Jay Crowder was there chucking shots to the tune of 29.3% from beyond the arc. I know, and you pointed out in your article, that he had better shooting performances other places. I get that. He still stunk it up for the Memphis Grizzlies. And to use your own point against you from earlier in the show, partner, Luke Kennard is flawed. He moved around multiple teams. He got traded from the Pistons, got traded to the Clippers to Memphis. Sure, I agree with that logic. This dude sat out for the Phoenix Suns thinking he was too good for Phoenix. He was too good to be a sixth-man reserve type. Then he gets moved to the Bucks. And when the Milwaukee Bucks season was on the line, all right, we need a hero. That song is blaring in the background, and Jay Crowder's tail in games 4 and 5 was on the bench. All right. So multiple coaches from Monty Williams to Taylor Jenkins, kind of Taylor Jenkins. Maybe that's more of a front office thing in terms of a trade. But from Monty Williams to Mike Budenholzer, he just got fired. Still a good basketball coach. Multiple guys think, you know what? Jay Crowder's not for me. Jay Crowder's not for me, partner. My last grievance on this Festivus Friday is with you, but I still love you.
You know, it's funny because Joe, when I wrote the story, I thought about you. I said, He's gonna see this. And so I'm not gonna bring it up. I thought about sending it to you in the morning, like, yeah, good morning, Joe Mullinax.
I do read all of your stuff. It might take me a day, but I get to it.
I said I'm not gonna send this to him. He'll see it. And lo and behold, it came down. But here's the thing. You said a lot of my points in there. So I gotta do some.
I did be rabbit you from 8 Mile.
I gotta maneuver here, but that's fine because you mentioned the whole trade thing, right? Mm-hmm. Now remind me when Jay Crowder got traded to Miami, they were Eastern Conference champions.
Oh, you mean in the bubble?
Yeah, Disney,
the Mickey Mouse trophy.
Yeah, the Mickey Mouse, the Disney
bubble MVP trophy.
Okay,
that's cool.
Okay. But as one of our friends pointed out on Twitter, because you mentioned the whole his numbers since he left the Grizzlies, 38. I think he's 38.4% 3-point shooting in 956 attempts. Yes, we know he shot the ball, stupidly in the bubble. Good, like it was insane. But even if you take away the bubble, 37.4% 3-point shooting on 5.5 attempts since then. It was only 45 games, Joe. Why are you holding this man hostage over 45 games when I've given you a bigger sample size, 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022, where this guy went to the finals, back-to-back seasons. Yes, I saw his numbers in the finals with the Suns. He shot bad in the finals. But guess what? Here's the thing. You find me 10 shooters in the NBA that aren't streaky. I challenge anyone out there to that. Speaking of challenges, I would love to hear what our Locked On viewers have to say. Let us know what you think. If you're still tuned into this point, let us know what you think. If you're for the Jay Crowder, if you're Team Joe Mullinax, Team DeMichael Cole, Team Jay Crowder,
you can't say it like that. Whoa! You're either pro Jay Crowder or you're anti Jay Crowder. Everybody's gonna be pro you.
Okay.
Everybody loves you.
I'm
Jay Crowder that they say should go cover the Wizards. That's me.
That's what they said, right? I saw that. Yeah,
I'm that guy. They say I secretly hate the Grizzlies, even though I've been doing this for a decade.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting on them to give you one of those China jokes. They said, go cover Guangdong.
I'll go cover Guangdong when Jay Crowder goes there and plays for them next season because he's going to be in the Chinese league.
He's going to be in the Chinese league. But, okay, all jokes aside, it's this simple for me. I've said this time and time again. This is what it boils down to me. You have your 3 cornerstone guys. Outside of those guys, you need fits around them, complementary players. I always talk about players who can star in their roles. Jay Crowder over the last 3 seasons has shot 38% from 3-point range on high volume. This is a guy, you don't got to worry about him not getting them up. Yes, he's going to have plenty of off nights, but he's going to have that night where he's 7 of 7 in the first half too. And he's not afraid to take that shot. A lot of 3-and-D guys, when it comes to crunch time, they ain't touching the ball. They're just standing in that corner, and they're here. Please don't throw it to me. Jay Crowder, as most Grizzlies fans can know, we saw it up close when he made that shot against the Brooklyn Nets. No hesitation when Ja tossed it back to him. One of Joe's favorite moments. One of the 78 3-point shots that he hit out of 266 attempts as a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. That's the one thing that everybody remembers. They don't remember the other 190 some misses. Him just building a brick house over there by the FedEx.
Yes.
Okay.
You can see the watchtower from Virginia. It was that tall.
I get it, but it was 45 games. It's 45 games. Just hear me out. This is the thing. We've seen it with Miami. We've seen it his first year with the Suns. He shot the ball stupidly good. Second season with the Suns was a down year, and he still was around, 34, 35%. So I think that's your worst-case scenario over the full course of a season to me with Jay Crowder, and that's a boost for this team. That's worst-case scenario. I think you get 36, 37%. But the Grizzlies need the shooting. They need the volume. You add that volume to the Luke Kennard volume, to the Desmond Bane volume, then the 3-point shooting numbers will go up. But here's the one thing that I haven't mentioned yet that I really like when you talk about Jay Crowder is he's played the 4 as he did with the Suns a lot. He pretty much was a power forward with the Suns. So there is the ability to downsize in smaller lineups where you put Jaren at the 5. You can put Jay Crowder at the 4, and he'll hold his own, and you can get Luke Kennard on the floor. And now, I know you don't like him that much, Joe, but tell me that lineup: Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jay Crowder, Luke Kennard, Jaren Jackson Jr. You'd like it. You'd like it. You won't admit it right now, but you'd like it.
You had me until you said the name Jay Crowder. Like the other ones I liked a lot, but Jay Crowder just loses it for me. Again, Harrison Barnes, great idea. Bruce Brown, I think Bruce Brown was my favorite name that you said. I think I'm very pro Bruce Brown, and I'm pretty sure the full mid-level exception, while maybe that might sound like a lot, I think that gets you Bruce Brown. Like I think, okay, welcome to Memphis, Bruce Brown. I think that you had lots of good ideas, and if you didn't check out the 5 free agent targets piece by DeMichael over at the Commercial Appeal, you need to do so because it was very good. I just can't let go of my disdain for what Jay Crowder was as a member of the Memphis Grizzlies, and I think there's better options. I saw how his time in Phoenix ended. I saw how he wasn't played by the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, that to me, more than anything, even more than how his time in Memphis went. The Milwaukee Bucks' season was on the line. And a guy that they sought out, they wanted on their roster, they saw him as, he played a ton. Who he shot the lights out against in the regular season?
He played
the
18
Memphis
games.
Grizzlies. The
18
Memphis
games.
Grizzlies. And he looked really good against the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah.
He played 25 minutes, and this was at the end of the season when they were resting a lot of guys, to your point. But he would play 16 minutes against Boston in March. He played 25 minutes against the Phoenix Suns and had a good game. Again, a former team there. He played 23 minutes, shot well against Orlando, but that's the Magic. In the month of March, he shot 32% from 3. In the month of April, he shot 52% from 3. But a major reason for that was he shot 8 of 10 across 2 games against the Wizards and the Grizzlies. He shot 4 for 5 from 3 in a game that they lost by 23 to the Grizzlies there that Friday before the regular season ended about a month or so ago.
You're really picking hairs on this guy, man.
I gotta tell you, for whatever reason,
we need our Locked On Grizzlies followers to find out what Jay Crowder has against Joe Mullinax. There's something deeper here. I know he says it's nothing personal, but there's something deeper. Maybe they ran into each other at a coffee shop or something in Memphis. There's a deeper story here. We need someone find out what happened between Joe Mullinax and Jay Crowder. I
think what it is, and this is me being truthful, is I have a lot of respect, and I think that's kind of shown through in our conversations here, for Dillon Brooks. I think that he gets a bad rap from a lot of people that are Grizzlies fans, and they say that he's inefficient, and they say he's a bad scorer, and that he's a pariah. Dillon Brooks is everything that people think Jay Crowder is. As bad as Dillon Brooks was offensively this season, his percentages across the board were better than Jay Crowder's in the 45 games that he was a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. So as bad as you want to say Dillon was this season offensively, and he was bad, Jay Crowder was worse. And I just don't know, when there's a plethora of other options, why you would want to go with a guy that we've seen that song and dance before. I struggle with people saying that Dillon Brooks is bad and shouldn't be here. And yet Jay Crowder, in my opinion, is worse than what Dillon Brooks' worst was. So I think maybe psychoanalysis wise, we can maybe leave it at that. I'm glad we talked it out, DeMichael. I feel better. I don't know if you feel better, but I feel better. It's all love on my end. Just please.
I have to add one more point.
Okay.
Just one more. And this is not directed towards you. This is just.
I feel like my hair is falling out.
This is for the viewers. This is for the viewers because I have to make it clear to them. And if you read this story, you would know that the free agent options at small forward, by the way, are not that good. It's a very limited area. Basically, we can all agree. Me and Joe have already pretty much agreed on this. The trade market is where the Grizzlies should go find their future small forward that'll play alongside those other 4 guys in the starting lineup. The point in the story, and it's written in the story, Zach Kleiman has said time and time again, the Grizzlies won't do a trade if it doesn't make sense. In this case, I'm basically projecting, hey, if the Grizzlies cannot come to agreements, come to terms with a team for a trade for OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, whatever the case may be. If they cannot find a trade partner, you have to have a backup plan. Or David Roddy's going to be your starting small forward, or Zaire Williams. So
and I don't want that. I don't want either of those.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would flip out. But to avoid that, your backup plan would be free agency, would be using that mid-level exception. And those are the names that we came to conclusion with. So at the end of the day, I like Jay Crowder for the Grizzlies. Don't get me wrong. But I like him as a backup plan to your backup plan, which is you go out that trade market, you go hard, you don't find anything. Okay, free agency, I think that's one of your guys you should go after.
I think that I would see I think he's with the Pacers now, what the Pacers want for James Johnson. I think I would do that.
As a starter?
Before I would go to Jay Crowder. Like, that's the depth. That's the depth of my spirit. And I'm not saying that's the most logical thing. I'm fully acknowledging that.
Give me Robert Covington before you do such a thing.
I think I would see if Gilbert Arenas takes some time off from the podcast.
The same James Johnson that pointed at Ja Morant's friend and was gonna
yeah. I'm not saying it's the most logical thing. That was part of my point. That's part of my point. I'm acknowledging there's multiple layers that are
there are some layers there, all right.
To that one, yes. And I'm glad we're picking up what I was putting down. It wasn't just the Grizzlies connection. So anyway, DeMichael, great points. We can all agree that Bruce Brown should be the guy from your article. That should be the focus if that is the path they go. And if it comes to a plan Z situation, maybe Jay Crowder. He'll probably play for the vet minimum. He won't be busy. He'll be in China or New Zealand playing basketball next season, more than likely. No, somebody will take a chance on Jay Crowder because he tweets in all caps and he's the boss man. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On Grizzlies all week, all season, all month, however long you've been with us. Even if it's today, that is your first day. We appreciate you being with us. Friendly reminder that we are very close to 2,000 subscribers here on Locked On Grizzlies. Tell a friend about us. Tell them that I'm the crazy, angry one. DeMichael's the logical, reasonable one. And we make a good team, and we are more than happy to welcome any and all NBA and Grizzlies fans with us as we grind through the offseason. So please subscribe on YouTube, like, comment, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get your podcasts. It is all appreciated. When we come back next week, Monday edition on Locked On Grizzlies, I think it makes sense to Michael to kind of do a check-in with where we are in the playoffs. We'll probably have some conference finals preview kind of things to do. Again, this is Locked On Grizzlies, so we won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but a check-in on where we're at in the postseason seems fitting for our Monday episode.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And at the end of the day, there are Grizzlies angles to all this stuff. So
yeah. Maybe things that the Grizzlies can learn from the Western Conference finalists. And if the Lakers are one of them, they'll just have to learn that they need to move Memphis to California and become a free agency destination. And that'll be the main lesson. No, obviously the Lakers did some pretty good in-season moves, and that's why they are where they are. We saw that firsthand in the first round series. For DeMichael Cole, I am Joe Mullinax. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Stay safe. We'll see you here on Monday. Grind forth. Stay locked in. This is Locked On Grizzlies.